Does the way you execute your business strategy generate fatigue and bleed waste? I talk with a lot of leaders, and they're all saying the same things right now. The most common thing I hear is that their own company blocks their effectiveness, and they do it by generating internal obstacles and not providing the support that they promised to do. And the result? Everyone is exhausted, and leaders are being forced to repeat this phrase over and over again. Perhaps you're using the same one. Do more with less. Frankly, it's demotivating to say that over and over again. And the research backs it up. 42% of employees don't feel cared for by their own organizations. 75% of all employees globally are disengaged or actively disengaged. That means they don't like their jobs or they're showing up to simply not do their jobs. And in the middle of this, over half of all managers are looking to leave their own organizations. And it's not any better at the executive level. The average executive vice president tenure is only 1 to 2 years right now. They're either leaving in frustration or being pushed out the door because they couldn't deliver. And we wonder why 95% of all employees either don't understand or even know what their company strategy is. And from my perspective, it's all created by what I call dump and run execution. Let me break that down for you. You see, there are so many executive leaders who were never taught how to execute. They may be really nice people and very well-intentioned, but they learned execution through trial and error, mistake after mistake, and frankly, blunt force experience. And now they expect you to learn it the same way. And even worse, they expect you to teach it the same way. I'm not saying these leaders are bad people or don't have tremendous skills in other areas. What I am saying is that they all have a major blind spot, especially when it comes to executing strategy in larger organizations. You see, when we are in smaller organizations, executive leaders are far more accessible. They want to help and have the capacity to do so. They happily share what they know as bite-sized best practices and memorable catchphrases. They offer their precious time as mentors and coaches, and they ensure that great decision-making happens, often personally themselves. But what happens when executive leaders no longer have time? What happens when layers of management get added to the org structure? What happens when coworkers become other functions of the business? Are we taught how to navigate that? And here's a mirror moment for you. Were you taught how to execute the strategy? Or are you being left in a dump and run scenario? Your leaders are literally dumping the strategy in your hands and running away for you to figure it out. Well, dump and run leadership only produces dysfunction and delays, which raises the question, how do you know if you're in a dump and run situation? And even more importantly, how do you know if you're a dump and run leader? Let me give you 2 simple questions that you can ask right now that will help you know that answer. Question number 1, do you over-rely on plans? And what I mean by that is, do you have a plan for the execution that everything has to follow? And if it doesn't follow that plan, it's, quote, not executing? Well, let's test that. How often does decision-making from other people kill your plan? How often does your own decision-making kill that plan? What you want to do instead is create great decision-making environments. You want to make sure that the decision-making skills and decision-making processes are in place for everyone on your team. Now, I'm not talking about making a gigantic bureaucracy for every decision. I'm actually talking about the opposite. I want you to empower and release decision-making throughout the organization so that people are all moving in the same direction. When you do that, your plans become wonderful aids to everyone's efforts instead of generating fatigue and waste everywhere. And the second big question I'm going to give you right now is, do you have enough clarity and empowerment? Let's peel this back a little bit, because most of us are taught to push culture, accountability, and engagement instead. Stop. You cannot and will never have culture, accountability, and engagement without clarity and empowerment. So let's talk about clarity for a moment. When you think about how much disruption you're being asked to generate or remove, has that scope been defined? Well, did you even ask? Did you ask your leadership if disruption is a good thing or a bad thing? And did you get clarity on your mandate for disruption? Because if you don't have that clarity, you do not have the same priorities as everyone else in your organization. And if you don't have the same definition of priorities, then there's no way you're going to have goal and role alignment, because people will be pursuing goals that are in alignment with their set of priorities, not yours. So as a leader, you should dig into that. You should be very clear on disruption, the understanding of priorities, and whether or not everyone has the same definition of priority 1, 2, and 3, and then ensuring there's a mechanism for challenging misalignment. And then just as important as clarity is, empowerment comes right along with it. Are you sure that everyone has been empowered to meet the expectations that you have now made abundantly clear? Think about that for a moment. Does your team have the people, the time, the energy, and the resources to get everything done that's being expected of them? If not, they'll disengage, and there won't be any true accountability. And ultimately, your culture will become toxic. If this short video is making you curious about how to be a better leader, I want you to check out my masterclass on strategic execution. It will help you conquer one of the biggest blind spots that almost every leader has. It's how we execute, by making sure that great decision making is happening. In that masterclass, you'll learn things that are not taught anywhere else, but I've put it all into one single online space. I guarantee you that it will change how you lead and ultimately how you live. See the link in the description below, or send me a direct message at tim@kupusolutions.com. I want you to be the leader who thrives. Holo mua. Onward and upward.